A couple of notes when it comes to telling your interviewer what they actually want to hear and acting in the way that they expect you to act in a job interview. So as I'm just saying here, there are basically two main areas that I'm going to touch upon. First is literally to tell them what they want to hear, like in terms of content, and probably that's the more important part. But also there's the other part, like building rapport and having an enjoyable conversation on both ends. And the reason why this is important is because interviewers are biased in a way. If you do this all day long, and if you notice, that you're having enjoyable conversations with the vast majority of candidates, and there's this one guy that acts weird, and you cannot really build any rapport with them in the interview, it's obvious, that they will be biased towards the other candidates, right? So I'm going to touch upon both the what you say and how you say it in a job interview. So the first thing I want to talk about here is right when you answer the call. So right when you answer the call, don't just say hi. That's not the professional way to start a conversation, a formal conversation with an interviewer. A better approach, a considerably better approach, or the right approach would be to introduce yourself. This is Dan Kreutor, right? So it's as easy as that. So this is the rapport building. It's a critical element. It's a critical starting point in the conversation, especially for more junior roles, because I would assume that for more senior roles, you would know how to do these things. The second thing I want to touch upon here, and this is more on the content side of your performance, be concise on your answers. Like, if you're too concise on the answer, they will tell you to develop a bit more on this, and it's essentially a way that you can start a conversation. But it's always the candidate that is sharper and to the point that will have a better, will form a better impression in the interviewer's head. So be concise in your answers, because unless you're asked to have 10 minutes answers, which from experience very rarely happens, and it's for very niche cultures, actually, it's for cultures, not even for companies, then you see you're always better off getting to the point as quickly as possible and essentially making sense after all. Number three, if you want to tell them what they really want to hear, what if you ask them, hey, what do you want to hear? Now, this might sound weird at first for you, but you might expect that any employer knows what they're looking for, at least to a certain degree, or at least when they delegate someone to interview, they are after something. For example, in some cases for Amazon interviews, they will screen you for the on-site interview. They will screen you on their leadership principles, and in some cases, they will tell you. The interviewer will tell you at the beginning of the interview, "Hey, I'm going to screen you on these 2 or 3 leadership principles." They are as straightforward as this. Now, this is an ideal scenario, let's say, and it doesn't happen everywhere. But for any type of interview with any type of high-performing company, they know what they're looking for. So how you find this out? Well, that's going to be tricky most of the time, but the idea is that you want to ask them somehow. You want to pitch this somehow to them. Usually they have, 3 or more core competencies that they are screening you on. So if you find these 3 or core competencies they're screening you on, it will significantly improve your chances to either pass the phone screening or either get a higher recommendation from them. So this would have been, again, ask them exactly what they're screening you on. Next, listen carefully to what they ask you, because more often than not, by listening to what type of questions they ask you and how they ask you the question, you will gain a lot of intelligence. For example, if you feel like they ask you a question and they are reading from a script, like they are reading from their own script, literally word by word, and you feel like they're not engaged in a conversation, well, that's a question mark, because aside from that being a question, the interviewer is disengaged, so you must do something here. You must understand, why are they disengaged? Are they simply uninterested in the conversation? Are they, performing in a way that should send you a message that you're not going in the right direction here? Should you maybe tune up your performance during this interview? And also another example here to really listening to what they're actually want to tell you is in the follow-up questions. Most of the time, if you're going in the wrong direction, the follow-up question they will ask you will be to help you to get back on track. So if you listen what they're actually asking you, you have actually a unique opportunity to get back on track during any possible interview. So great candidates are also great listeners, and I know this by coaching hundreds of people for these types of jobs. So listen carefully. This is a skill that you must learn over time. If you have the opportunity to role play with someone, I also have a role play service, a free one. So I believe it would be an interesting exercise for you to listen to someone to really form an impression, and then make your pitch according to that impression that you have formed. So carefully listen in a job interview. Next thing, you want to ensure that you perform as they expect you to perform in a job interview would be to follow their templates. The most common of these, and I'm talking about behavioral interviews, is a STAR template, right? Now, it should go without saying that you should, to a certain extent, follow that STAR format. Now, I've done a couple of other videos where I explain that the STAR format is not necessarily to your advantage in job interview because it's a template. It kills creativity after all. But still, you start from the template. You know that they're expecting from the template, and then you go your creative way, and then you can easily fit a couple of metrics, a couple of keywords, such as the result was. And they would even say, yes, actually that's an interesting way to pitch the STAR format. But if you don't fit at all into the STAR format, unless you're applying for a director level role, it might be perceived on the weird side of things. And of course, in the STAR format, you are, as I said in the beginning, you are concise. You use metrics. And there's the whole protocol with the STAR format, but keep in mind they also have templates to fill in, right? They must give a higher or no higher recommendation. They must give a pass or no pass recommendation in the case of phone interviews. So if they have to fit in some templates, you would also have to fit in some their template in that template as well. Next one here, use cheat sheets. So if you want to tell them what they actually want to hear, probably you shouldn't forget what you want to tell them in the first place. So if you prepare a couple of these answers, what you want to prepare here is usually the tell me about yourself and why do you want to work for this company, strengths, weaknesses, and a couple of behavioral questions, maybe a couple of failures if you want, maybe your success stories. These will be the elements, so don't overreact with cheat sheets. But if you note these things down and you spend a little bit of time to prepare those cheat sheets, this could actually prove useful to really ensure that you're giving your best shot during an actual interview. And of course, this vastly applies to the phone interview, but also it's not unheard of for people to go with cheat sheets during the on-site interview in the form of notes. Like, yes, I have here my couple of stories written down. And, whenever you are getting asked a question, if you have only 10 stories that you would want to use, which, by the way, I wouldn't recommend, it's too few of them, but you could have your story in front of you, your list of stories in front of you, and you can pick the best one. And I've never heard of any occasion where the interviewer disagreed with someone having these, this list with some information during an interview, or, you could tell them that you want to take some notes. You also took some notes previously, so you want to continue taking notes. So these cheat sheets can be a very useful element. And of course, during a remote video interview, you can, take advantage of this setup, because after all, the remote video interviews are to your advantage, primarily, not to your employer's advantage, because in a video conference, you can exaggerate things if you want. For example, you can make a much stronger impression than other people if you know how to impress in a video performance. I've done other videos on this, but also you can place your cheat sheets just behind the camera, as I have right now, so you don't see that I'm actually using a cheat sheet right now for the script of this video. So there are many ways to capitalize on scripts and on these cheat sheets, but the main element is that you take the time to prepare the proper cheat sheets and the best possible strategy you want to employ, in order, of course, to tell them what they actually want to hear, because this is the goal of this video. And last, but far from least, I should say, it's you should follow up with them after the interview. There are very isolated cases where you wouldn't want to do this, and you can check with your recruiter or with whomever you are talking to set up the interview in the first place, whether that's acceptable or not. But 99% of the time that's acceptable. And if they tell you, well, yes, but that's not important, it is. So it simply is. It shows a sign of politeness, and it's, again, as I started in the beginning of the conversation, it's that protocol that interviewers are used to, are spoiled with. So if candidates are acting nice, if anyone is acting nice to you, it will be a reflex that you would also act nicer to them. So unless you feel like the interviewer was really the type of person who wouldn't want to talk with you again, and hopefully he's not a decision maker, so he won't disqualify you, then I'd always send a thank you email, and of course not a templated one, but a more one that you invested time in, and of course immediately after the interview, if at all possible. So these would be the elements. Again, this would be the rapport building phase, as well as what you're going to say in the interview to maximize your chances to actually tell them what they want to hear. And keep in mind, they're human beings. Interviewers are human beings, so they are biased in a way. So you can, by employing these cheats, these hacks in a job interview and actually preparing, because this is the main thing, you will, from experience, significantly improve your chances to have a successful outcome.